On the Talkback Show, on the radio, or whatever audiovisual device you choose to use. Welcome to the GBC Podcast, where we talk about the Packers and our hometown of Green Bay. This is episode 46, created on May 11th, 2023. I'm John. I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin. Along with me, Jeff in Minnesota and Neil on the East Coast. Say hello, gentlemen, and tell us what you're drinking.
Hello, gentlemen. Tonight I'm having a Founders KBS Maple Mackinac Fudge.
And I am having a Resident Culture Anchovy West Coast India Pale Ale.
Did you say anchovy?
Anchovy,
Are there anchovies in it?
It does not taste like anchovy.
Is it
That's
salty?
a bummer. I've got an ice cream drink tonight, Jeff. It is a Velvet Hammer. There are no anchovies in my ice cream drink either.
Awesome.
You can find us on YouTube and Twitter at Green Bay Chat and Facebook at the GBC Podcast, Green Bay Chat. And just the audio is available on Spotify by searching for Green Bay Chat. Well, what are we talking about tonight? It is the 2023 Packers schedule. The NFL has released the schedule for the 2023 season. We'll take a look at the Packers as well as some highlights of other NFL marquee games. And we're going to talk about where the GBC Podcast is going on the road this season. We'll build up the anticipation for that one, kind of a after the break kind of situation, Neil. But first, let's take a look at this season as a whole. My first thought, kind of an interesting start to this season. In the first 7 weeks, the Green Bay Packers have 2 home games, and they're 4 days apart. After that, starting in week 8, it's a pretty balanced schedule as far as home and road. We'll break down the weeks one by one. But what did you see? What sticks out to you, Neil? Right up off the bat.
What sticks out is that we better start out hot. So we've got a good situation for Jordan Love playing the Bears in week 1, albeit in Soldier Field. But, we've got a chance for the new owner of the Bears to take over. And then at Atlanta, we don't have our first home game until the Saints. You look at those teams, and we don't play a playoff team from the 2022 season until week 7 when we play the Vikings at the end of October. So there are a lot of problems for us looking at the middle of the schedule and, a little softer sort of towards the end as well. But we've definitely got some streaks that could go either direction. And I would like to see Jordan Love and the Packers and this young Packers team build a little momentum early, such that when we get to that tougher stretch, we're going to have that confidence to go through that and win some of those games that on paper people might say, yeah, the Packers are probably not winning that one.
Neil, you talk about the team getting off to a hot start. The one thing that's not up here is the preseason schedule. Bengals, Patriots, Seahawks, 2 home games in that now 3-week preseason schedule. Do you think that we see a lot of the young talent, including Jordan Love, getting some heavy playing time in the preseason because of that?
I think we have to. I think that this is going to be a very different. You're not dealing with a quarterback who's in his late 30s. You're not dealing with a veteran team. You've got a team that, yes, there may be the greater chance of injuries in the preseason, but they need a little bit of time to gel. This is a very young team, and that's a good thing globally. I'm really looking forward to the youth, but them getting some experience under their belt, I think, is going to be really important.
Jeff, what do you like about the schedule?
I think it's balanced. Like you talked about, there's going to be some hot teams, some playoff teams for 2023 that weren't in 2022. Hopefully we're not playing those teams.
Last year's Giants being the real killer for us.
Exactly. So, we have a bye week early this season, which is good. So we also don't have any games across the ocean. So in theory, less fatigue from that standpoint. Like to see December games. I know that bringing Tampa Bay to Lambeau in December may be a little bit of an advantage. Lots of primetime games. So that was kind of a question mark going in. Okay, since Aaron Rodgers has departed, are we going to see a lot of primetime games? So the league gave themselves kind of an out because some of those marquee games or primetime Sunday night games, especially, are in December. So there is a possibility of flexing out of those. But it's good to see 5 games back on Thanksgiving. I think that's a nice tradition with Detroit, the first of the 3 games on Thanksgiving. You've got another Monday night game against the Raiders in Las Vegas. And I know that's seen some things about already. Tickets are exorbitantly expensive and airfare and things like that. I think Packer fans will show out well for that. I'm excited, as all of us are. Got early on, we've got some grouping of home games as well. The Saints, Lions back to back, like you said, 4 days apart. Not ideal, perhaps, but at least they're at home back to back. And then you've got, the Vikings and LA, kind of back to back in the end of October, early November. So I think it's good. There's some 12 o'clock games in there as well. I haven't peeked at the Viking schedule yet, so I may be a subscriber to YouTube TV for the NFL Sunday Ticket. We'll see, depending on how many. I guess my preference would be not to watch the games via cooler. Excited, and I think we'll see lots of primetime games.
So let's actually talk and quantify those primetime games. We've got the Thursday night game. We've got the Thanksgiving game. So 2 games on Thursday. We've got 2 Sunday night football games and 2 Monday night football games. But they only have 2 games that are in that late afternoon slot on Sundays. The rest of them are on Sunday at noon in Lambeau field time. And just looking at as far as home games in Lambeau, 5 of the home games in Lambeau this year are noon games at Lambeau. I think that for the fans, this is something that's going to be good. And for me, as somebody who is going to be selling some of my season ticket games, selling those noon games is a lot easier than selling the primetime games, despite in theory, the primetime being more prestigious. The fact is, it's just more difficult to travel to Milwaukee and Madison after a primetime game.
And I looked at that from a tailgating perspective. The 5 noon games at home are spectacular. The one that really throws the wrench in everything is the week 4 game. The Lions coming into Green Bay. It's a Thursday night. Now, that is the second home game. That becomes the gold package game, which means it's the Milwaukee ticket holders. We had the same thing last year with the Tennessee Titans coming into town on that Thursday night right after the Cowboys were in town. And, those tickets went cheap on the secondary market. And like you said, Neil, it's hard to get that gold package, the Milwaukee fans, to come up on that Thursday night.
I mean, Detroit's getting better. Is there the possibility that we might have a larger contingent of Lions fans at that game, something that we're not really used to at Lambeau Field?
The other interesting thing about that with the Lions, Neil, is both of those Thursday games are the Detroit Lions, Thanksgiving, and then the Lions coming in. And that's the one, Neil, that I really don't know. It's week 4. It's September. It's a Thursday night. Will Lions fans show up in that one? Possibly, because I think they might get less expensive tickets, especially if the Milwaukee ticket package holders don't want to come up on that Thursday night. But again, being early in the season, the weather could be favorable. Maybe they do hold on to those tickets. That's one of those that is just going to be I'll be surprised when I see it. What happens.
Well, I mean, that early Lions game at Lambeau, right? That's going to give us a good feeling for where this season is going to go. Is this going to be primarily a developmental season, or is this going to be a season that is going to build into the possibility of it being a playoff team? And I think there's a good possibility of that, but we need to win games like a home game against the Lions to build up enough wins to have us thinking about the playoffs once we get to December.
Yeah, especially when you look at last season. The last season specifically, and even the year before that, were rebuild years for Detroit, and they really showed some serious growth last year. So that is a good, tough match to get early in the season.
Hopefully more of a revenge game, because remember, they kept us out of the playoffs.
The other NFC oddity as far as the schedule is concerned is that our season is bookended by the Chicago Bears. We start the season with Chicago. We end the season in Green Bay, but the Bears at both ends of the season, that'll be a good test of both of those teams and how they have changed or built or fallen apart as over the course of the season. I'm really hoping the Bears, it ends up being a falling apart kind of thing.
Well, our friend Dakota, who was on last year during the Bears week, saw him last week, and I talked to him. I said, "Hey, are you coming up to Lambeau Field again this year?" He says, "Well, I got to wait for the schedule to come out because I'm not going to a cold weather game in Green Bay."
Guess we're not seeing Dakota.
He won't be coming to Green Bay this year. And I said I would be interested in going to Chicago with you for a game. But in the back of my head I was thinking anything but opening week. I don't know if I want to go to Chicago for that season opener. That could be a crazy day in Chicago. But why don't we go ahead and take a look at it week to week? So we know week 6 is the bye week. All right. And like I said, in the first 7 weeks, we have 2 home games. They're 4 games apart, but let's break those down what they are. We were just talking about the Bears. So going to Chicago, again, starting the season with the Chicago Bears, this time in Chicago, 325 matchup. Again, another team that is in serious rebuild mode, and they're all in with Justin Fields, and they had a good draft, I believe. They got the tackle that I kind of wanted to see in Green Bay, so Be interesting to see how that offense comes together in Chicago.
But I think that they're definitely a team that could go up or down. And actually, as I look at the schedule, one of the things that's crazy to me is I don't know how most of these teams are going to do. There are so many games where you look at the team and you say, I could easily see them go 6-11. I could see them go 12-5. I mean, there's just so much variability, even more so, I think, than a regular season, just because we don't know what, are the Rams going to be a team that goes back to challenging for the Super Bowl, or are they going to be the shithole that they were last year? The Steelers, the Chargers. I mean, they always seem to be up and down. The Lions, the Bears. I mean, there's so many games on our schedule that I don't know how good their opponents are actually going to be. On paper, we've got a relatively easy schedule. We only have 5 playoff teams from last year, but we know the turnover in the NFL. We know how some of these teams have gotten better. And yeah, we're going to learn a lot about not just the Packers, but certainly all these other teams too.
Jeff, you're going to hold off on the Bears till week 18. Okay.
Sure.
Let's take a look at week 2. We've got at Atlanta then. So opening up the season, 2 road games at the Falcons. That's a Sunday noon matchup. The Falcons kind of in disarray. One of those teams you talk about, Neil, that probably could have a shit season, which could bode well for us if we come out of the gate strong.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see Atlanta being a 12-5 season. Let's just say that straight out. So I think that this is a best case scenario. If we have to play on the road, giving Jordan Love a good playing surface to play on, he's going to have, it's air conditioned interior, so he's going to have good weather to deal with fundamentally. That seems to be a game where we might see Jordan Love and some parts of that Packers offense and defense really clicking in week 2. I really like the week 2 matchup.
Although the one thing to consider is that it's a dome away. So if the Atlanta fans do show up, how well does Jordan Love know the offense? There could be crowd noise, could be other distractions, silent counts, things like that. I think we're going to learn a lot that week how well he knows the offense.
Speaking of dome team, get the New Orleans Saints coming to Green Bay. Finally, a home game, week 3. It is a Sunday noon matchup. I know that the New Orleans crowd travels well. They are fun to tailgate with. That'll be a great Sunday morning in Green Bay, but boy, it'll be nice to see number 10 in a crisp green jersey coming out on that Sunday afternoon. Neil, you like it?
I like it, and I've already circled that as one of the games I'm coming back to Green Bay for.
Okay.
It's just sort of a perfect time. I mean, the season home opener is always a great, enjoyable, fun time, right? There's always that spirit of the Packers fans, seeing something new. And even though now it's in week 3, I think that new car smell that we're going to have with this Packers season is something that people are going to get really excited about. I think it's going to be an incredible crowd. I think it's going to be something that's going to be very supportive of Jordan Love and of the entire team. I think that this is a game that I expect to be a really good game that's a Packers victory.
Agreed. You've got a dome team, granted the weather shouldn't, hope it's, fall football, right? I mean, this is going to be the idyllic week 3, look cool, maybe something like that. Saints probably aren't going to be they may be a playoff team. Again, there's been a lot of changes there as well, but kind of an intriguing matchup, but certainly winnable. And so I think it'll be exciting to see, them trot out in all those new players in their home green uniforms.
Neil, my brother is one of our regular viewers, so I want to make sure he marks down that weekend of September 22nd, 23rd. We'll do our dive bar tour that weekend as well when you come in, and he can join us as well. Quick turnaround for week 4. Like we said, 4 days apart. Now it's Thursday, September 28th. The Detroit Lions come into town. I just do not like that short turnaround. Last year, the electricity before the Titans game on that Thursday was amazing, because remember before that it was the Dallas game and how Green Bay won that Dallas game, and everyone was thinking, oh, yeah, the season has turned around and now we got Tennessee, and yeah, we shit the bed again with the Titans coming into town. I hope we don't with the Detroit Lions, but like I said, that short week, that's going to be the probably the biggest, toughest test early in the season.
Yeah, it's a short week, but last year we had one of the oldest teams in the NFL. This year we're going to have one of the youngest teams in the NFL. And what type of team is going to be favored by a short week? A younger team. I actually think that the short week might work to our advantage since it's home and home.
And then, so segging that into game 5 then, so then there's that longer break, because then they go from a Thursday night game to a Monday night game. Now, granted, it's in Las Vegas and right before their bye week. So I think that's kind of intriguing as well. You said it's a younger team, so in theory, the recovery time won't be as much. But I think that'll be, not really a revenge game, because with Rodgers not at quarterback. with still with Devontae Adams. And I think, Vegas, that's an intriguing team. I think this is going to be a really tough game. I know, as we talked about already, Packer fans traveling to Vegas, this is going to be a pretty big turnout in Vegas. So lots of green and gold there. But yeah, a very interesting game.
Well, Jeff, earlier you mentioned that there's no over the ocean travel this year. Last season also, we only had one game west of the Mississippi. Well, this year, that Oakland, I knew I was going to call them Oakland, goddammit. That Las Vegas trip in week 5 is one of 3 games west of the Mississippi River. So that is a Monday night game as well. That's interesting. I always think of the Brett Favre Oakland Raiders game just after Favre died. Yeah. And that was an amazing night of football. I don't think we're going to get the same magic here, but it should be a fun matchup of some young teams in Las Vegas.
I mean, the Raiders are another one of these teams. They could be 6-11. They could be 11-6. And I think the real rubber factor was what Jeff mentioned, that this could be a crowd that's half Packers fans or more than half Packers fans. And so I have no idea what's going to happen in this game. It is a game that worries me a little bit for being in Las Vegas, but who knows? Well, who knows?
That schedule was leaked this morning, and listening to Sports Talk Radio and following social media, by 9 a.m. there were 500,000 Packer fans committed to going to Las Vegas. The flight tickets doubled for that week. The hotels went up. The cheapest tickets are in the $400 to $500 range right now. Everybody and their mother.
Have tickets been released for most of these games? I'm a little bit dubious of that because, as a Packers season ticket holder, I don't have any tickets that I could even put on StubHub. So I don't know.
You could sell the right to your ticket. I think is what it's
that of which you do not have quite yet.
But yeah, like I said, everybody and their mother, even my mother, was trying to go to this game, and they looked at even some of those costs and like, okay, maybe we aren't going to go. All right, week 6, Neil. I think is there an irony here, or is there a statement here that week 6, what should have been the bye last year, is the bye week this year? What are they saying here to us? Hey, you guys, take your bye in October when you should get it.
I think we're going to win the bye. I have no doubt that that's going to happen.
You heard it here first.
All right. After the bye, then we're on the road again, and this time at the Denver Broncos, Sunday, October 22nd. It's one of those 3:25 matchups, Neil. And the Denver Broncos, kind of a team that didn't perform last year like they thought they would. They put a lot of money into an old quarterback, and they're going to keep riding that horse till he keels over, I think.
Yeah, but the horse is playing at over 5,000 feet, and I hope that Matt LaFleur brings the Packers players out for a few extra days more than a normal trip to Denver, because that Denver home field advantage is a real thing. And even when I was 22 years old, I noticed the altitude for several days, and that there's no doubt that the altitude is playing a role as far as Denver's huge home field advantage. And I hope that Matt LaFleur really acknowledges that this is a winnable game. Denver is another team that we expect to be at best sort of middle of the road. This is a winnable game if we go in well prepared. And the beauty is it's after the bye, so that's the best case scenario for being well prepared.
What Neil said, no, I was thinking the same thing. It's fortuitous that it's coming off the bye, so rest. And again, if they go a couple days early or something like that, they break a little bit of protocol or whatever, but it just to acclimate. But again, it's more younger players as well, so again, that in theory will be advantageous even in the altitude.
I did get altitude sickness one time. So I was 24 years old and I was living out there, and I was driving into Denver to cover a sporting event. And just kind of one of those things where being anxious, trying to get there on time, fighting traffic, and now the altitude, and driving down I-70, I literally thought I was having a heart attack in my car. And I was like, holy cow, where's the hospital? How am I going to deal with this? But it is a crazy thing that it just hits you the way it hits you.
I got altitude sickness playing golf when I was in my 20s in Denver. So, I mean, it's just, I played golf in the afternoon with my brother, go to a Rockies game at night, and by the second inning, I'd had 2 beers and I felt like I was going to die. I actually had to go back home and went and fell asleep. I mean, it was horrible. And I don't care how young you are. If you're not living at 5,000 feet, there is going to be an adjustment period.
So again, after the bye, hopefully they can get a couple extra days in Denver before that matchup. After that, they come home. So we're looking at week 8. The Minnesota Vikings make their way to Lambeau Field. Another noon Sunday matchup. Jeff, what do you think of that purple team? What are they going to do this year?
Well, for starters, I won't have to watch this one on a Sunday ticket or anything. I'll get this one on regular TV for sure. The Vikings overachieved last year, right? They won all those weird 50-50 games. They had that historic comeback. From the last few years back, the Packers played the Vikings pretty early in the season usually. First game, first couple games or whatever. So now, and we just kind of didn't know, and they were kind of weird, unsettled games. So now, this is coming not later in the season, obviously. So it'll be interesting. I'm glad that the game is in Lambeau, another home game again, coming back from Denver. I don't know. I'm not sure what this team is going to do. I know we briefly discussed, in the draft that most folks thought that the draft was less than savory, and that's putting it kindly.
You in particular thought that, yes.
But it wasn't just Jeff, though. So
Will's team, you got Kirk Cousins, you got a bunch of receivers. The offense, in theory, is going to be good. What is the defense going to be? Again, like the Packers, they didn't draft any offensive linemen.
Except their offensive line sucked last year, so they were
exactly
right. Drafted offensive linemen. So,
which again,
all of those edge rushers that we have, this sounds like a great game for them to make a statement. The other thing, of course, is regression to the mean. This seems to me like this is regression to the mean. This is a situation where we are at home and two teams that are trying to figure out what they're going to do. The Packers have the big advantage.
All right, so it'll be a back-to-back home games, both of them Sunday noon games. It's going to be just like we're kids again, Neil. The Los Angeles Rams coming into town on Sunday, November the 5th. This is a team that was in complete disarray after winning the Super Bowl, one of the worst follow-up seasons, and they don't really look like they're going to get much better this year.
No, I mean, of course, Matt Stafford's not going to be injured for half the year, and that's going to make a difference. I do trust Sean McVay. I think this team is going to be better next year, better in this upcoming year. But I'm just hoping it's going to be Matt Stafford playing in Lambeau Field. And even when Matt Stafford was on the Rams, he's had some bad games in Lambeau Field. So I'm looking. I think this is a game that we've got a decent shot at.
Yeah, and typically early November, it's a little cooler. You might get some rain, things like that. Conditions might not be as ideal as well. Again, you've got a noon game, so you get, like you were talking about, back-to-back noon games. Fans should be ready to go and tuned up. I think Sean McVay will change or Sean McVay won't come back after this year. I think, this is going to be kind of maybe his make or break year. Matt Stafford is not young. So that's the other thing too. Is he going to be good? Probably. And what is their defense going to be like as well? A winnable game, I think, here as well. And back-to-back home games is a big plus.
So we turn the corner. We're at the midpoint of the season, and that mid game in Week 10, Sunday, November 12th, is at the Pittsburgh Steelers, a noon game as well. The Yinzer Mob, as they call it out in Pittsburgh. This is kind of this is that, I don't know, what do you call it? The wild card game. This is the extra game. This is that extra AFC matchup that we get, and we're going to Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh's another one of these teams. Could be 6-11, could be 11-6. I have no idea. I'm certainly afraid of a road game in Pittsburgh. It's something that certainly could rattle a team. But we look at what we expect this Packers team to be built on this year. We expect this team to be built on defense and then being a bit more conservative, perhaps on offense, with some, of course, big playability. But this should be a team that's going to have a strong defense, and that's a team that can play well in a hostile road environment.
Both the Steelers and the Packers, young quarterbacks, young receivers, could be a fun offensive matchup on that Sunday afternoon in Pittsburgh.
Or it could be 6 interceptions.
With 6 interceptions, okay.
I said, or I didn't. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, Love's going to have some bad games in here, some really bad games thrown in there, and you just don't know when it's going to be.
That is a profound truth, Neil. That is well said. All right, well, it brings us back to Green Bay on Sunday, November 19th. It is the second of the 2 gold package games. This one, a noon game on Sunday again, and the Los Angeles Chargers rolling into town with young Justin Herbert back there at quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, this was a game that when I looked at the Packers' opponents, I really wanted to see the Clippers and Justin Herbert playing in Lambeau, but this game is on the second day of hunting season. It's a gold package game. I will not be at this game. It should be a game that's definitely going to be a test of where the Packers are at the midway point through the season. I expect the Clippers are going to be a really good team, and we'll see how we do at home. We've got an advantage. It could be a game that we can win, but certainly we're going to have to be playing at our best.
For those of you who haven't tuned in before, that is a running gag. Neil intentionally calls them the Clippers. All right.
They are LAC, just as the LA Clippers are in the NBA.
All right. So we're on Thanksgiving in Detroit. Jeff, you did a whole piece on Thanksgiving Day games. Tell us about the Packers and the Lions on Thanksgiving Day.
It's been a few years. It's good to be back in there. Obviously, a national audience. The early Turkey Day, people are coming over, probably having the early Thanksgiving Day feast at that point. But again, a tradition. It's nice to see that they scheduled the Packers back. Another road game, nonetheless, a national game. So I think at this point in the season, we'll have a pretty good idea on what the teams, how they're gelling or not, right? As Detroit is going to be as good as advertised potentially and worthy of a number of their national games and primetime games. Will people, if the Packers maybe been struggling or not that great, will Jordan Love, step up on a big stage, and will they really shine? I hope they do.
That moves us into December, and who comes to town? It is the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. The Packers and the Chiefs don't play against each other too often, and we did not get a Rodgers and Mahomes game where they were both on the field at the same time. But this is a game that gives Jordan Love his rematch. So we're looking at Jordan Love at home Sunday night as Mahomes and the Chiefs come into town.
We got Andy Reid coming into Lambeau. I think Andy Reid and Lambeau is just, to me, it's the story. I mean, and also Patrick Mahomes. I mean, this is a game that I'm not going to be able to make it to, but it's one that I would love to be able to watch. Patrick Mahomes is going to be one of the all-time greats if he's not moving there already. And it should be a fun game. But on the other hand, the Chiefs certainly are stretched thin because of their contractual situation, because of their salary cap situation. So who knows what's going to happen? I mean, the Chiefs might be a team that struggles to get into the playoffs and then goes on a Super Bowl run again. But I think that when the Packers are at home in December, any game is winnable. I don't think anything is beyond us, but it's certainly a tall order against the defending Super Bowl champs.
And this will be the Mahomes-Love rematch. So they'll get back on the field. Mr. Love will have an opportunity to redeem himself. I know it was the last time they played, not ideal. It was a low-scoring game. It was not pretty, but I think he was still learning the offense at that point. Hopefully the outcome will be better. I know the fans, with a Sunday night game, this should be pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that the fans really show up. Kansas City travels well also, but really a treat to see Patrick Mahomes. And like you said, sort of a homecoming for the coach as well.
Neil, I can tell you the tailgating will be off the hook because not only is that a Sunday night matchup, that's Scott's birthday weekend as well. So it is going to be an incredible Sunday in Green Bay.
And it will be traveling Chiefs fans, and they will have a good time as well.
Yes.
That reminds me, we'll have to make contact with our friend Charles, who we interviewed, and tell him, hey, get up here and find out who the Chiefs fans are that are coming. So we'll make a note of that as well. All right. With that said, we come to week 14 and the second of our Monday night matchups. This one is in New York, technically, against the Giants.
No, technically it's not in New York.
Technically it is not in New York. You're correct. Neil, you're gonna make your way up to that game, though, aren't you?
I absolutely should. It's an easy trip to the Meadowlands, and I don't have a lot of confidence in this game unless the Giants fall apart. And I think Brian Daboll's a good coach. On the other hand, I still don't have complete confidence in Daniel Jones. So again, another team that could be 6-11 or 12-5.
Intriguing matchup simply because it's kind of shoehorned in between a couple home games here for the Packers. It's December in the city, right? So in New York City, I think it'll be an exciting game. I think at this point we'll also know kind of if New York is actually playing for something or not, or if the Daniel Jones era is coming to a close in New York and they're just kind of mailing it in. Hopefully they will be. But again, Jordan Love under the lights again. So he has basically 3 weeks in a row here where national game scheduled. It'll be interesting to see how he reacts and how the team reacts. Again, it's young players that haven't been exposed to this, right? And so that'll be exciting to see how they react, and hopefully their excitement will turn into wins.
Well, I mean, that game is also the fifth game of a really brutal stretch. You have at Pittsburgh, the Chargers, at Detroit on Thanksgiving, Kansas City defending Super Bowl champ, and then at the Giants. That is a brutal 5-game stretch. And, we come out of that 5-game stretch 2 and 3, we're going to have a really good year this year.
And the interesting thing about that, you make it a 6-game stretch of back and forth, home and away, the 6th game being the Buccaneers in week 15, where the Buccaneers come to town now. Here it is, another classic Green Bay Tampa Bay matchup. When is it? It's a Sunday matchup at noon.
Right, but the Buccaneers are one of those 5 teams that made the playoffs last year in our schedule, but they don't have Tom Brady anymore. So I'm hoping that this is a game that should be fun for Packers fans.
And maybe we'll get a blizzard again, right? Yeah. So like back in the 80s when we had the December blizzard game there. So it's, again, get a cold weather team coming up to Lambeau in mid-December. So I think, in theory, advantage Packers.
All right, so we usher in the holidays. No home games over the holidays this season. The first one on Christmas Eve. We are in Charlotte, the Carolina Panthers, a Sunday noon matchup on Christmas Eve.
I hate Christmas Eve games, but this Carolina game being the one that's on Christmas Eve annoys me even more because we've got friends who live in Charlotte. My sister lives in North Carolina. This was a game that when we saw our opponents, I had circled in the schedule as, well, I'm definitely going to the game in Charlotte, and I will not be at this game in Charlotte because it's on Christmas Eve.
This will be, be sitting at home, enjoying Christmas Eve and another noon game.
All right, Neil, you won't be going to Charlotte for Christmas Eve, but Jeff, what do you think of being in Minneapolis for New Year's Eve, Sunday night football, Packers at Vikings, Sunday, December 31st? Are we ringing in the new year in your neighborhood?
No fucking way. Nope, not going to do it, John. I'm sure US Bank Stadium will be rocking, but I will not be in attendance of that game. There's kind of a tradition. You've got a lot of Vikings fans sell their tickets to Packer fans. I mean, this is a great opportunity outside of Lambeau, close to Lambeau, to see a game, but my experience there has not been a positive one, shall we say, in historic games I've been there. I'm not going. It's a New Year's Eve night. Thank you. With this gray hair, I'll be sitting at home on New Year's Eve, enjoying a cocktail and watching this game at hopefully prime time. Again, this is where the league is kind of given an out as well if one or both of these teams has faltered. No, I'll be at home. Thanks for the offer, John. No,
see, Jeff, I thought you were going to say it was a bad idea because, again, Vikings fans are bad fans, but they're not bad people per se. Or are they bad people if it's going to be drunk on New Year's Eve, moving into New Year's Day?
I think that's probably an accurate statement. And it's in the city, and you're going to, but lots of bars and things like that are going to be open ahead of time. They're going to be tuned up. I mean, the Packer fans show up very well for this. There'll be a lot of Packer fans there, but just the flack that the Vikings fans typically give Packer fans, not going.
And that brings us to week 18. We really don't know anything about week 18 other than it is the Chicago Bears coming to Green Bay, listed as TBD on the schedule, but it'll be that first weekend in January. And as the NFL has been doing, that's the weekend where they're going to put that marquee matchup at night, Sunday night, whatever has playoff implications. Would it be nice to see Green Bay in that game again like we had last year? That was a fun time last year with Detroit.
I would come back to Green Bay, certainly, if it were a game with playoff implications.
Yes, and fun being, yes, they got the marquee game. Not so fun in the loss.
No, when you get a gift like that, you got to take advantage of it. And they certainly did not. So hopefully this team comes out better this year. We're not making predictions on where we think this team will fall or how those are going to play out. We'll probably wait till the preseason until we get a good look at our Packers squad. But there are some highlights of other NFL matchups throughout the season. The biggest one, Neil, the kickoff weekend on Thursday night in Kansas City. Who could be traveling to Kansas City? They've got the Bengals on the schedule. They've got the Eagles on the schedule. So who's going to open up week 1 in Kansas City against the Chiefs? It's the Detroit Lions.
Roger Goodell is drunk on power. I just don't understand this at all.
How about them Lions, huh? It's going from very few, if any, marquee primetime games to a whole bunch.
Yeah, as I mentioned, for marquee matchups, I mean, Kansas City is hosting the Bengals in week 17. They're hosting the Eagles in week 11. I think Kansas City's got their work cut out for them as far as the schedule goes this year.
I mean, I think every AFC team at some level has their work cut out for them because the AFC is fucking loaded this year. The AFC is loaded. And, just as we had last year, there were teams that started. I mean, the Bengals started out slowly last year and they eventually were able to claw themselves back in. But it's going to be a real fun season watching how these AFC teams sort themselves out, and we just don't know where it's going to be, but it's going to be really fun as an outside observer who doesn't really care about any of the AFC teams to see what happens.
Well, and then there's this quarterback that we kind of are familiar with, and that quarterback also went into the AFC, and that Jets schedule, man, that thing is brutal also. Now they get a bunch of primetime games, many more primetime games than they've had in quite some time. You wonder why, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do.
So that opening weekend, Jeff, it's the Jets and the Buffalo Bills Monday, September 11th. So you got Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen on the field at the same time. The game we went to last year, Rodgers and Allen, but now it is the Jets and the Bills. Then they get the Dallas Cowboys in week 2. It is the Aaron Rodgers, Mike McCarthy reunion all over again.
And that'll be interesting because Aaron Rodgers has never lost. He's 4-0 at Jerry's World. So it'll be interesting to see if he can go 5-0 or if Mike McCarthy will have his revenge.
Week 3 is the New England Patriots. Jets-Patriots, always a good rivalry matchup. But then week 4, will we finally see Rodgers and Mahomes on the field with the Jets and the Chiefs in a Sunday night matchup?
We'll see. I mean, I hope so. I think that's what the league is counting on, right? As a Sunday night matchup, they schedule it. That's what they want to see. I think that's what a lot of fans want to see. I'll watch it.
Good. That's why it's in prime time, Jeff.
Exactly.
They go to Denver for week 5, and then week 6 it's back home, and they've got the Philadelphia Eagles. So this is not only a tough schedule, but 4 out of their first 6 games are at home as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to learn a lot about these New York Jets in those first 6 weeks. I mean, their schedule gets a lot easier as the season moves on, especially they end the season really in a very straightforward manner. But how Aaron Rodgers and all of his time actually going to practice and going to mini camps and going to the OTAs, I mean, is this actually going to make a difference? Are we going to see Aaron Rodgers playing with the chip on his shoulder? Well, he's going to need a chip on his shoulder because that first 6 weeks is absolutely brutal.
They get the bye in week 7, but yeah, you're right. That late season, they get in order: Dolphins, Falcons, Texans, Dolphins, Commanders, Browns. So 2 matches with the Dolphins, who could be kind of strong, but there's 4 teams in there in Atlanta, Houston, Washington, and Cleveland that are probably going to make the end of the season very favorable for the New York Jets.
But will the Jets media have turned on Aaron Rodgers before that point? Always in play with the New York media.
In addition to that, how the Jets limped into the end of the year last year, right? I mean, they faltered at the end of the year. So they've got some easier teams in theory this year. So we'll see if their experienced Hall of Fame quarterback can make a difference.
Mm-hmm. One other big matchup is the game that didn't happen last year. It was the Bengals at Buffalo. Well, this year the Buffalo Bills are traveling to Cincinnati. That is going to be a week 9 matchup. Looking ahead after that, 2 interesting weekends, the holiday weekend. So week 12 is Thanksgiving weekend. We mentioned Packers at Lions with the morning matchup. Then we get the Commanders at the Cowboys and the 49ers at the Seahawks on your Thanksgiving Day games. Pretty nondescript matchups, I feel, on Thanksgiving Day.
Good, because I don't usually like to watch football. I like to celebrate Thanksgiving on Thanksgiving. So go ahead.
Then there's a bonus. But wait, there's more. The NFL said, you know what? We're going to do 3 games on Thanksgiving, but we're going to give you a special this year. And that's
Black Friday.
Black Friday, that's right. At 2:00 in the afternoon in the Central Time Zone. So kind of right smack dab in the middle of the afternoon. An NFL game. Some people are going to be shopping. Some people may be working, but you get a Friday afternoon game in the middle of the afternoon.
And it is that aforementioned Dolphins at Jets matchup that's going to happen on Black Friday. The other holiday is Christmas weekend. So Christmas Eve does fall on a Sunday this year. So the NFL has its Thursday night matchup. But then a couple of games on Saturday, the 23rd, Bengals at Steelers, Bills at Chargers. Christmas Eve with a smattering of games, including a late game on that Sunday night, Neil, the Patriots at the Broncos. Sunday night, December 24th. So it is a late Christmas Eve game again that the NFL puts on the calendar.
Embarrassing. They should not be doing that. That is not the time that I want to watch football.
And in addition to that, you get 3 games on Christmas Day. So we have 3 games on Thanksgiving Day, 3 games Christmas Day this year. At noon on Christmas Day, Raiders at Chiefs. The 3:30 matchup, Giants at Eagles. And then the nightcap, the Ravens at the 49ers. Again, probably some nondescript games, but it's a holiday filled with football.
They've got to do something to compete against the NBA. I guess that's what they're thinking. But I'm just thankful that the Packers are not playing on Black Friday, which is my second favorite day of the hunting season. And I'm happy that the Packers are not playing on Christmas Day, because that is not when I would want to go to a football game. We did it last year, obviously, but it is not how I like to spend my Christmas Day.
No, it's you bring up a good point regarding the NBA, because the NBA had kind of taken over in the last number of years Christmas Day. So now that we've got a direct competition with that. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of, and like you said, they're kind of nondescript games. So we'll see if there's a little fatigue from that, and the NBA will kind of capture the audience.
All right, it is the moment for the big reveal. Where will the GBC podcast be going on the road in the 2023 season? The nominees are the Atlanta Falcons in September, a game that we talked about like 4 years ago when the Raiders first moved to Las Vegas. We calculated the Packers would be in Las Vegas in 2023. We made a tacit commitment to say, let's go to Vegas, baby. That's one of the nominees. Neil has already ruled out the Carolina Panthers, so they're not a nominee in this one. But the Pittsburgh Steelers in November, or at the Denver Broncos in October 24th. Neil, you've got the envelope. The winner is?
At Denver Broncos.
At Denver Broncos. So we are going to be heading to the Mile High City in October. We're starting to formulate plans for that. We'll start hitting up some contacts, figuring out where we're going to stay and when we're going to get there, who is going to come with us this year. We'll see who wants to join us on the road to Denver and get our altitude sickness out of the way on Saturday, Neil, so that we can have a good time on Sunday. A nice afternoon matchup. And you got to remember that's Mountain Time, Neil. That's a 2:25 kickoff in Denver. We're going to get out of that game, and we're going to have all Sunday night to party in the Mile High City.
Looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great time. I love Denver. I love Colorado. So John gets to go back to a state where he lived for a few years as well.
My love-hate relationship with the state of Colorado continues. Yes. Jeff, are you not as excited about going to Denver this year? The unbridled enthusiasm.
Well, we had discussed, either a number of different venues, and I have not spent much time in Denver. I spent an afternoon in Denver with you many, many years ago.
Yes.
John. So looking forward to it. I think it's going to be, it'll be a good game. If nothing else, like I said, get a chance to experience Denver fans. Again, we're looking for new venues. Again, it's an outdoor venue later October in Denver. It should be gorgeous weather-wise. It could be snowing. It could be 80 degrees, right? It could be. So we'll look forward to hopefully some great weather and even better Packer victory.
And I know we'll talk more about it when we get closer to it, but I can tell you right now, I really think that Packer fans are going to descend on Denver. I think that we will take over that stadium. And the thing about Bronco fans is they are notorious for leaving early. So if it is a good Packer game, it's going to be our house by the end of that afternoon.
Excellent.
All right. You've heard it here first. All right. So we are heading to Denver this year. We took a look at the entire schedule. We're excited, but we've got a lot of downtime to go before then. Neil, Jeff, any last thoughts on the schedule and just what the hell are we going to do the rest of this summer?
Well, what is the summer going to bring? Well, it's obviously going to be training camp, but before that, looking forward to taking a family vacation, doing a little road trip with the family, packing the family truckster, and we're headed west in June with the family. So looking forward to a trip there. We've talked about it last year. Big vacation. We got to circle back, have a podcast on our trip, looking back 1 year later. Hopefully we can get that accomplished as well. I'm gonna miss you in spending time on the road with you this summer regarding the schedule. Again, we've got, as we sweep through the summer into the training camp and such, into the preseason, hope springs eternal. We'll obviously dissect more of the games and get our official picks in before the season. Looking forward to traveling to Denver, even though my response initially was a bit underwhelming. But I think it's going to be fun. Looking to a great summer and an even better fall.
So my excitement for the schedule release is figuring out what my travel plans are going to be for the fall, right? You see who the teams are that you're going to play at home and away, and you think, well, I'd like to see the Chargers. I want to see Justin Herbert. I want to see Patrick Mahomes. I want to see people in place A or place B. But you don't know how much of that is viable until the schedule actually comes through. And now it's actually, well, I know what I'm going to be doing on September 24th. I'm going to be at Green Bay for the home opener. I know what I'm going to be doing on October 22nd. I'm going to be in Denver with you guys and a lot of other friends, I think, and friends and family. I'm going to be also, as far as road games are concerned, Pittsburgh's only about 4 hours away from me. I'm definitely going to the game in Pittsburgh. I really want to enjoy the legendary Pittsburgh Steelers fan base, the legendary Pittsburgh Steelers tailgate experience. I'm really looking forward to that, especially after having experienced Buffalo last year. And then I'll make it to the Meadowlands again. I make it to the Meadowlands basically whenever the Packers play there, whether it's the Jets or the Giants. It's just an easy game for me to get to. And so I've got a few road games that are going to be mixed in with a couple home games, and it's going to be a good travel season. Maybe not quite as much travel as last year, but I can now look at the schedule and say, I've got plans for what I'm going to be doing on weekends throughout the fall.
Well, I look forward to seeing you in Green Bay. I think that it is going to be a terrific tailgating season with our 8 home games regular season. We've got a couple of preseason games as well. I can tell you that the Saints fans and the Buccaneers fans travel well. They're going to have a great time in Green Bay. I am really looking forward to seeing how the Chiefs fans come into Green Bay and what that is going to be like. Your Bears, your Lions, your Vikings, those are always terrific weekends in Green Bay.
Are there going to be any Clippers fans or any Rams fans that show up?
That's a good question.
Bay?
I was just going to say, the 2 LA teams, the Rams have been here recently. They do bring in some fans. It's a different kind of crowd, though. It's good. But yeah, the Chargers will be the one that'll be the most interesting to see, because I think the Charger fan base has been in such disarray with their move. They're a team, I think, still without an identity, but we'll see what their fans are like. So looking forward to a great tailgating season on top of the 2023 Packer season as a whole. And we'll also get to see how Packer fans travel once again as we go to Denver in October. All right, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit subscribe. It's free, and you can always leave a comment for us as well. You can also find us in various social media. The GBC podcast is at Green Bay Chat. That's all one word, Green Bay Chat. We are on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, and Spotify. Facebook, a little bit different. It's the GBC Podcast Green Bay Chat. And as always, may you fully appreciate the magnitude of your impending good fortune. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.
Good night.